Welcome, my sisters, to another episode of Breaking the Silence podcast. This podcast is for sisters just like you to find healing, freedom, and step into purpose boldly. I have been talking about grief lately for the past month or so. We have talked about grief in disguise. We have talked about how grief shows up in unexpected ways. We have talked about unprocessed grief, how we don't allow our emotions to process through grief, how we keep going on with our lives and not processing our feelings and our emotions. And sometimes it's grief that weighs us down. We have talked about all things grief. We've talked about how grief not only shows up from losing a loved one, but grief shows up in transitions. Grief shows up when God is telling us to let something go that once held a place in our hearts. We are talking about all things grief. Grief when we have miscarriages or just pain of losing something. We have talked about how we can break the silence on grief and depression. And in this final episode of series of grief that I have been talking about today, I want to talk to you about the connection between grief, depression, and unforgiveness. Have you ever grieved something that put you into depression? And sometimes the grief don't lift off of you until you actually had to go in and forgive a person. Sometimes you have to not only forgive a person, but you have to forgive yourself. That's when the weight lift off. I have experienced plenty times on this journey of life when God is telling me to let something go, I grieve that thing, and it oftentimes gets me in a state of depression. But what I realize is through the journey of getting rid of depression or recognizing when depression creeps up on me, I had to forgive somebody. Forgiveness is when healing starts. When you forgive, that's when your healing starts. This is a place or a stage that I could say the depression stage is where many people settle at. As I was writing my notes for this podcast, I heard God say, settle here. Many people settle here in the depression stage of grief because of unforgiveness. My question to you today is, who do you need to forgive so that you won't stay stuck in depression? Once you forgive the person, that's when the depression will lift off of you. You can look at depression two ways. During the stage of depression, many people oftentimes sleep. They sleep a lot. They may eat a lot, or they may even function every day like nothing ever happened. Sometimes we hold on to unforgiveness so much that we mask the depression. I like to call it functional depression. They go on their day-to-day lives without forgiving the person, but they are depressed because they haven't forgiven that person that they need to forget. And another thing, when we don't forgive people, we hold on to them and it becomes a burden to our heart. It becomes weight in our mind because we haven't released it to God. We haven't released them to God. Forgiveness is not just about forgetting, right? Forgiveness means releasing it from your heart so that your heart won't feel weighed down or burdened with the grief or the depression. Because when we hold it in our hearts, it becomes a heavy burden. Releasing it means that it served its purpose, that it can no longer hold your future. You could not move forward until you release your past. Depression is holding on to your past, holding on to the thoughts of what could I have done better, or my life gonna always be this way. When we lose a loved one, it doesn't just mean that we erase the memories or the love that we have for that person or the love that they have for us. It means releasing them to God so that God can carry the weight. Release in exchange for God's love and comfort. It doesn't mean we forget our loved ones or the pain of not having them here doesn't exist. Releasing them so that they can be free, so that you can be free. Many people settle here in this depression stage of grief because they don't want to forgive or they don't know how to forgive. I have came across many women, many believers, non-believers, who hold on to things, hold on to grudges, they hold on to offenses, and they don't forgive. I believe over a period of time, that's where our hearts become hardened, that we say things like, I will never forgive them. But that's not the character that God wants us to have. God wants us to forgive. Forgiveness is not just, it's not letting the person off of the hook or forgetting. Forgiveness is saying that I no longer want this grief, this depression to hold a place in my heart. I no longer want to hold this offense or rejection in my heart. It's releasing it so that God can carry the weight. One thing I want to talk to you all about is a lot of people think that you forgive a person or you forgive, God, or you just forgive, right? A lot of people think that forgiveness is a one time act. I have experienced several times over the past couple of years where God had to walk me through the journey of forgiving, right? Because I thought forgiveness was just me, hey, saying I forgive this person, I'm not going to talk to them. That's another thing. Forgiveness sometimes does not mean reconciliation. It just means that you're releasing them. You can speak to them, or you don't even really have to say anything else to them. But God knows your heart. Forgiveness is not a one-time act. Forgiveness is you have to forgive over and over and over until you can see that person and not feel any kind of bitterness or resentment in your heart towards that person. There was times where I had to forgive a certain person in my life, and every time I would hear their name or I would see them in public, it was something in my heart that's still saying, I don't want to talk to them. Like I still felt that anger towards them. They didn't know it, but I didn't want to have anything to do with them. That's when I realized I had to constantly go to prayer with God and ask God to take any kind of bitterness or hatred or resentment that I may have towards this person. Take it away from me, God, because I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to keep replaying in my mind over and over what this person did to me, right? So that's when I discovered that forgiveness isn't a one time act. And this one particular person that I had to forgive, I felt like I went on that journey for a couple of years forgiving this person. It was constantly like, can you just imagine having to forgive a person over, I say about 100 times in prayer? Until that weight or that unforgiveness lift off of you. Can you really imagine that? That's how we hold on to grief. We hold on to depression. That's why I say it's a connection between grief, depression, and unforgiveness. We have to learn how to forgive so that the weight can be lifted off of us. Forgiving is allowing God in your pain, in your heart, in your trauma. It's accepting that, hey, this happened to me, this person hurt my feelings, or not even that. Sometimes it's accepting the fact that God wants better for your life, right? So I experienced some unforgiveness one time towards God. It's allowing God in that space with me and telling him that, hey God, I was angry with you, right? I was upset with you because I had a plan for my life and it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to be. But God, help me to understand your plans. God, I forgive you for being angry with you, but God, I don't understand what you're doing in my life. I forgive myself for letting things or how people treated me. I forgive myself for allowing that to happen because sometimes guilt and shame creeps up even in the mixed bag of depression. We feel guilty, we feel shameful that we even allow things to happen like that. And that's where you have to come in and forgive yourself. Forgiveness is not just for a person who done you wrong, but forgiveness sometimes could be you simply forgiving yourself, because we beat ourselves up so many times when things don't work out the way that we wanted them to work out, or we may have allowed people to treat us certain ways, and we don't understand why we stayed in that relationship for so long. We don't understand why we stayed connected to this person for so long. But oftentimes when we get out of a situation, that's when we can see ourselves. We can't fully see ourselves when we are stuck dead in the middle of a situation that we can't see our way out. God allows us to see ourselves once He rescues us. Once He takes us out of that place, we begin to see areas where we may have been mistreated or mishandled, or where we just accepted things that should not have been. We have to go back and forgive ourselves for that too, because we can hold on to that guilt and shame inside, that it becomes depression too. I'm telling you about the different scenarios of how grief oftentimes shows up, so that you can become aware when grief tries to creep up with you. I am speaking to you today about forgiveness so that you won't continue to be stuck in the grief of depression. There is a connection between depression, grief, and unforgiveness. And this is how we break that cycle, is to forgive, so that you can move forward in healing and surrendering to God's will for your life, so that you can move forward into the acceptance stage of grief where healing begins. I don't want to just leave you with the words that I just spoke to you about: the grief, the connection, the unforgiveness. I want to leave you with tools on how to forgive. And it's what I call my forgiveness framework. First, we have to acknowledge our emotions. First, you need to acknowledge that, hey, this person hurt me. I am angry with myself. I am angry with you, God. Acknowledge your feelings. Second, tell God how you are feeling. Tell God. He can handle it. Tell God how you felt mistreated. Tell God how you feel angry. Tell God that you are afraid, that you are scared. Tell God about your feelings. The third thing that will help you to learn how to forgive is ask God to soften your heart in the areas of unforgiveness. Allow God in that space in your heart so that healing can begin. After that, you need to release them to God. Like I said, release them to God. Tell God that you no longer want to feel this pain. Tell God that you need Him to come in to soften your heart, to be able to forgive this person. Tell God all about it. God knows it's hard for you, but God wants to release that heaviness and weight off of you. Even in the times of releasing them to God, and what I mean like releasing them is to forgive them. Speak it out loud. God, I forgive them. I forgive myself. I forgive you. And that's how forgiveness starts. Then, after you speak that out loud, you need to allow God to comfort you in that moment. This is the part where I believe that healing starts when we allow God to comfort us through our pains. Sometimes God will even take you back to the place where you were hurt. And it's okay to really sit in your feelings and process everything that happened. Allow God in that space, in the space of forgiving. And then after that, anytime those emotions come back up again, anytime that bitterness or hatred or offense come back up again, repeat what I just told you. Acknowledge the feeling, the emotions of what you are feeling. Tell God about how you are feeling. Forgive that person. Release them to God. Tell God that you are hurt, you are angry, you don't want to feel the pain. And then forgive them. I forgive this person for God, take this pain away. Allow God to comfort you in that moment through that pain of processing the grief, the depression, the unforgiveness. And it may happen 100 times, just like me. You may go through the forgiveness process 100 times or more until you can actually face this person, right? You can face this person. And really, when you really have truly forgiven somebody, when you see this person, those bad emotions won't come up. What you will feel is the love of God. What you will feel is wanting to really pray and intercede for that person. That's how you would know that you have forgiven them. You will bless them. You will say, God bless you. That's how I know forgiveness has really taken place. Once you can see that person or you can hear that person's name and none of those negative emotions come up. You truly want to pray and bless them. You want their life to be blessed. That's another thing that I had to learn with processing unforgiveness or forgiving a person. I began to bless that person. Even during the process of me forgiving them, I bless them. I leave you with this. Grief is not linear. It's a process. But I believe if you forgive, that's where your healing starts. You can't heal until you forgive. Be sure to stay in touch with Breaking the Silence podcast. What I have coming up is I have created a program just for you, the ones that feel that they are stuck in grief, the ones that don't know how to forgive, the ones that is having a hard time with letting go of people, places, and things. I have created a program just for you. The program is called Finding Freedom Through Obedience. It will soon be released on next week, 11/11. If you're watching this podcast anytime, before or after, the link will be in my bio so that you can take this program, so that you can be encouraged, so that you can identify which stage of grief you are in and how to actually let go, surrender. I teach you all of the steps that God had taken me through over the past several years. And I believe I went through all of that just to help you, just to help free you. Also, I don't want to just leave you with a program. I believe in community support. So what I have also done is I have a grief support community that you can connect with. That community is called All Things Grief Support Group. You can connect with that too. So be sure to check the link in my bio, purchase the program, connect with the grief support group, and I believe it's going to bless you and many others. If you know someone that's stuck in grief, if you know someone that's having a hard time with transitions, send them to this podcast. Share this podcast link with them. Until next time, my sisters, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for joining Breaking the Silence podcast.